Hello and welcome to the Black Ponderer. I'm Neil Trotter, and today we're going to be talking about the philosophy of giveaways. No, I'm just playing. What we're going to do is we're going to announce the winner of our YouTube giveaway for the subscribers, and I just used one of those online random generators to pick a winner. And we discussed this in the last video. What we're giving away is these two books. And one lucky subscriber won who entered, and I will read off their name right now. It is JJBBJCMH78. Yeah, that's like flashback to old school internet, right? When people just used the random letters. Congratulations, you've won the giveaway. I'll be messaging you later in case you don't watch this video in a timely manner. And we can get that mailing address from you, and we can send you these books. It'll be great. So again, just read the name off again. JJBBJCMH78. Congratulations. I'll be messaging you soon. So now, what's next to do? Do we just leave it here at like a 2-minute video? No, we're gonna add some additional content. We're gonna, let's have a discussion. Let's talk. And if you were one of those people who just came, hey, I just wanted to know who the winner was and I'm out, peace out. I mean, see you later, deuces. But those who want to have some discussion, want to talk a little bit, let's talk. And what we're going to talk about today is a question I get asked frequently via messages or comments, online interactions. People ask me, how do you read so much? How do you do it? How do you read so much? I guess, the short answer is I just don't watch television. And television, we're talking about what, Netflix, Hulu, Amazon Prime, whatever they're called, that service. Yeah, I don't watch TV that much. Everybody knows, how much of a time sink, television is. And that's cool, there's some great shows, I guess. I kind of fell off TV after the 90s, really, to be quite honest with you. But that's how I'm able to read as much as I do, because I just put my time elsewhere. But that's a short answer, right? The long answer really is, actually, I don't read that much. I mean, have you seen the people who make book-related YouTube videos and how much they read? I mean, some of these people, they read like over 100 books in a year. I mean, that's just like, it's just nuts, but that's your thing. That's cool. And that's great, reading that many books in a year. And then they get disappointed, like, wow, I only read 70 books. I wanted to read 100. It's like 100, that's a lot of books. I don't think you need to be tripping off that. So compared to those people, the booktubers out there, I don't read nearly as fast, right? I mean, relatively speaking. But I would like to add an interjection or like a point of consideration. Why is it so important to read a number of books, like a certain amount? Why is it important to read a high number of books? I don't think that's important. I'm talking about quantity versus quality. I would argue that it's not about reading a certain amount of books. It's about what you're actually reading. Like if you're reading like 50 books in a year and 40 of them suck, like they're not good, they're bad books, then what's the point of reading the 50 books? Might as well just have read the 10, right? And I know the arguments, right? The well-known argument is, look, you got to read a lot of books, because how are you going to know which books are good and bad if you don't read a lot of books? The more books you read, the more chance you're going to find good books. I actually really don't have that problem, to be honest with you. Every single book I read is good to me, because I think, I guess when you're first starting to read, that can be a thing. You don't really know your reading taste. But I think after a while, once you start reading a lot, you begin to kind of know what you like and what you don't like. And you can kind of tell, which books you would like. At least that's it for me. Maybe that's not for everybody. And I also understand that some people like to keep track of things, and they like to set goals, and they like, having like metrics, like the whole bullet journaling thing that's going on right now. I don't know how long a thing. That might be a very old thing, but you know, I'm seeing it really big now. People keeping track of their progress, their reading progress, and you know, it makes them feel good when they hit that certain number or they hit that certain mark where they're setting that goal and then they're striving to it and then they reach it, and it gives them motivation. That's cool. You know, nothing wrong with that. You know, that's your thing. If you enjoy doing that, measuring progress and setting goals for yourself, hey, there ain't nothing wrong with that. I don't really do that myself. I don't really, you know, I don't find enjoyment in that, but you know, I'm not saying that other people don't. I'm just saying, me personally, I don't. The other thing to consider is that, you know, a lot of people are really busy, right? There's a lot of busy people doing a lot of things, and you know, the thing is, people just don't have time to read, right? Either they don't have time or they just can't. Because they don't have the access. That's the other thing, right? I mean, some people work job, you know, full-time job. That's a time investment right there. You know, a lot of people work 2 jobs. You know, a lot of people work and they go to school at the same time. You know, a lot of people have kids, right? That's a huge time sink. You know, if you're in a relationship with a significant other, that's a huge time sink, right? You might have a job. You might be going to school, you might have kids, and you might have a significant other at the same time, right? I mean, how do you have time for books? Or some other stuff might be going on. You might have a dependent, somebody you're taking care of, you know, all types of things. You know, a lot of people just don't have time to read that many books, and that's understandable too. Another thing to consider is, you know, most people do not read for fun, right? Most people only read when they have to. In fact, most people I know, like most of my buddies and my pals and my friends and like members of my family, they don't read. Like, they only read when they absolutely have to. The majority of people I know, like 90% of people that I know, do not read a single book in a year. Now, some people might be surprised by that statement, but I think most people would not be surprised by that statement. You know, most people don't even read a single book in a year, and it might be because they don't have time to read, or they're not readers. You know, I say this to let you know that if you read one book in a year, I'm telling you, if you read one book in a single year, you're ahead of the curve. Like you read more than most people in the world. Now, I understand that that's a low bar, right? And you know, you can easily argue like, well, I want to set a higher standard for myself, right? You know, I want to achieve a little bit more than that. And that's fine, that's cool, that's great. But I would just encourage you, I guess the thing that I'm trying to say is, don't get too anxious or worked up over the amount of books you're reading. Like if it's something that's giving you joy and excitement and, you know, entertainment and a sense of achievement, that's cool. But when it's, you know, giving you anxiety and you're getting like envious or jealous or like you feel bad, like, I don't know, I don't think you should do that. I think if you read a few books in a year, you should be proud of yourself. Because you're way ahead of the curve, literally. So what I want to do in this video is I want to recommend, like, let's say you're like really busy and you just don't have the time to read that many books, which that's many people, or maybe you're a really slow reader, which is fine. It's not, you know, you just read words slowly. Nothing wrong with that. You know, I personally don't think reading fast equates to like a better reader. You know, I think it's about what you take out of a book that makes you a good reader or not. If you're either of those things, I would like to recommend 5 books, you know, 5 books. In each one of these books, I would argue that if you can only read one book in a single year, this book will be worth reading because it will give you so much information and so much entertainment, really, and so much knowledge and just so much things to talk about. Like, you could literally that could be enough for you for a whole year. This actually isn't one of the books that I'm recommending, but this is the current book that I'm reading right now. This is Karl Marx's Capital Volume 3, and this is why I haven't come out with one of my normal videos yet, because it's a long book, right? It's over 1,000 pages. I'm halfway there. I read a 500, and it's gonna take a while. There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with taking a long time reading a book. And personally, I think that this is going to be a very valuable read for me because currently, you know, socialism is becoming more popular. You know, it's becoming popularized again. You know, we have very important, prominent, popular politicians, in America, like Bernie Sanders. He calls himself a socialist. There's, House representatives that call themselves socialist Democrats, right? Socialism is becoming a thing, right? So I'm trying to understand where it all came from and the theories behind it, like by reading some Marxist works, by Karl Marx himself, right? I'm trying to really understand it. I also have friends who are Marxists, like hardcore Marxists, who buy into all of what he says. I have friends who are socialists. I have friends who believe the problem with the world is capitalism, and that is the sole issue, and once we get rid of that, the world will be a much better place. So I'm trying to understand that point of view, that perspective. So my next video will be about this book, and I think this is one of the books. This is not one I'm recommending, but if you were to read Karl Marx's Capital, I mean, that would be very valuable. Right? If that was the only thing you could read in a year, you would gain so much knowledge because you would be hip and aware and knowledgeable about what everybody's talking about in this political debate of socialism versus capitalism, and why it's such an important issue and a hot issue now. You're getting a lot deeper understanding than like a Spark Notes or like some 10-minute YouTube video or like a Wikipedia page, right? You're getting some deep knowledge, so you can have some really deep discussions with people who are, proclaimed Marxist, socialists, or even if you are buying into those issues and you're having debates with pro-capitalists or like neoliberalists or something like that, you can really know your stuff by reading Karl Marx's works, which is where all this theory came from, where it started. A lot of it is rooted in what he wrote. And that's what I'm talking about, the knowledge, the value so much, the value you're getting. And it doesn't have to be just information. It can just be entertainment. You can read for fun. And some books, I argue, are so fun that they'll hold you over for a year. You can reread that book over and over again. If you're like really busy, let me recommend you some books. So I'm one of those people who believe that, a graphic novel is just as literary as a regular novel, right? Or a book of poetry or a collection of short stories or, what have you. A graphic novel holds the same weight. I'm a huge graphic novel or comic book fan. I'm into the superhero comic books, right? I like the, X-Men is amazing to me. Well, old school X-Men. This new school X-Men, I don't know, I guess I'm getting a little older. Spider-Man, Batman, Superman. I like all that superhero stuff. I've read it ever since I was a little kid. But I'm also into the graphic novels. And I would like to recommend you, like, my favorite graphic novel. My all-time favorite graphic novel. And that right here is this. It's called Blue is the Warmest Color. This is one of the books I would say, if you only had time to read one book in a year, this would hold you over. This would hold you over. What this book is about, it is about a lesbian love story or, a queer love story. I think one of the characters is bisexual. And it's great. First of all, it's drawn amazing. It's got, the artwork is just stupendous, right? If you can see that with the glare, I'm sorry. It's a great book. The reason why it's so good is that it perfectly, well, it doesn't perfectly, but I guess it does. It perfectly describes the experience of being in love and going through the whole motions of being in love. Like, if you've ever fallen in love before, you will relate to this book. It doesn't matter if you're gay or straight. It doesn't matter if heterosexual or homosexual. What race you are, what your gender, whether you're a man or you're a woman, you're going to relate to what's happening here. And you're going to relate to what's happening here on a very deep level. Right? The author, Julie Maroh, right? She understands what it's like to fall in love and all the hardship and the pain and the experiences that go through that. And, if you're in a relationship that's kind of rocky, and the complications that go into it. I'm reading this book and I'm like, oh yeah, I remember when that happened. Oh yeah, that hurts. And oh, Yeah, I remember that. That was embarrassing. You know, a lot of the things that happen just typically happen when you fall in love. And the moments and experiences that you feel during that situation, and you know, the pain, the frustration, the hurt, the love, the passion, the lust, all that is in here. You know, I don't know how she was able to do it, but this author made this story just so relatable, just so empathetic. And that's why it's so good. I think that this book, you can have a lot of conversations about what love is, what romance is, romantic experiences, the situations that go into the romance when you're in love with somebody. I mean, you could have some really long conversations over this book. You know what I'm saying? Now, the thing is, it says here, now a motion picture, right? I would not recommend the motion picture unless, you know, to me, I was watching, I couldn't finish it actually. I watched the movie, because there's a movie of it, and it was basically a softcore porn, which is what it was. And that's not what this is. This is not a porno. Now, it does have some graphic scenes, you know, it has some really good sex scenes, very drawn very well. It has some really romantic scenes in here, absolutely. But this is not a porno like that movie was. The movie was like, to me, the movie felt like an old man's wet dream. So that's what it felt like. The sex scenes were drawn out way too long. They were really slow, and you know, too many of them. And like that, I was watching the movie like, this is not what the movie was about. So I would not recommend the movie unless you want to see like a softcore porn. But I mean, you can just go to the internet and watch one of those that are like a lot better for free. You know, so why even watch that? But I'm telling you, I reread this a lot because it's just like, and you know, I talk to people about it. A lot of people don't know that there's a comic book. They know about the film, but they don't know about the comic or the graphic novel. And I have long conversations with people over this book. I've shown people this book, and a year later, I still talk to them about the book, and there's new topics that are brought up. That's what I'm talking about. The value you get reading that book is amazing. You'll definitely get some bang for your buck with this one. So what's another book? Okay, we're gonna go with some history, and this is another amazing book. Now, let's say you want something beefier. You know, you're like, look, man, it's a year. Give me something that's a little bit longer. Okay, how about this book? This is called The Warmth of Other Suns by Isabel Wilkerson. And it is the epic story of America's Great Migration. This is a nonfiction book about the Great Migration. The Great Migration is a period in time in America where African Americans were trying to move away from Jim Crow South, and they're trying to go to states up north and states to the west, trying to escape the institutional racism of Jim Crow. And this is one of the largest movements of humans ever, right? And it's not a lot of research done about this until this lady right here, Isabel Wilkerson. Oh, I think, yep, this picture of her right here. You know, what a godsend. You know, what a god. I mean, this lady knows how to do research. The best well-researched book I've ever read. And about a topic that was under-researched tremendously. As you can see, this is the winner of the Pulitzer Prize. And that's a good reason. Like, you're gonna learn so much about African American history reading this book. And what's amazing about this book is that it's not written like a textbook. It's written like a novel. It follows three people, real life people, as they migrate away from Jim Crow southern states. You know, back when Jim Crow was institutionalized and it was the law. And it is written like an epic novel. Let me tell you. You will not be bored reading this. You know, you're going to be informed, entertained, educated. You know, your heart's gonna break. Your heart's gonna be filled with joy. It's a roller coaster ride. this book, but I mean, it's got all these facts and all this knowledge and all this history, along with this incredible story of these three people, and also other people as well. I would say that this book is great to read in 1 year, because I'll tell you, man, if you were to read this book, or lady, right, if you were to read this book, you would know more about American history, not just African American history, but just American history. You would know more about American history than the average American, right? I mean, let's say you live in Japan, or you live in like Europe, or like Australia or something, and you read this, if you finish reading this book, you will know more American history than the average American individual, which is sad, but it's true, because the Great Migration has contributed so much to America's history. Yet, that event, that large, massive event that spanned decades, is not taught in school. At least when I went to school, it wasn't taught in the history classes that I went to. But you know how it is, downplaying African American history. It's a shame. Hopefully they'll include this book in African American history courses, college courses, maybe even high school courses, get in excerpts. I mean, it is a long book. Let's see, over 500 pages. So it's going to take you a while to read this book, but the value you get will be tremendous. What's another book? Let's say if you had 1 year and you could only read one book, just make up scenario. What would you read? What would hold you over, give you enough value, where you can look back and say, that was a good year, because I did read a good book. Well, here's another book right here. This is a book called Dark Matter and the Dinosaurs. It's by Lisa Randall. This is a book of science, another nonfiction book. Lisa Randall is like one of those scientists who is also really good at communicating, like Bill Nye, the Science Guy, or Neil deGrasse Tyson, or like Brian Cox, the professor. One of those people, like one of those great communicators of science. And she's written other popular, famous books that are kind of for the layman who's interested in science, like War Passages, which is on the front cover. War Passages is about what her field of study, what she's studying, which is multiple dimensions, which is pretty cool. She's also written this book called Knocking on Heaven's Door, which is about the Higgs boson particle, which today I believe they found enough evidence to virtually prove that this particle exists. Trying to understand what gives matter its weight, right, or its mass, right? What actually does that? But here in Dark Matter and the Dinosaurs, right? Here, this is a great book. The reason why it's great is because Lisa Randall is communicating to you why cosmology matters. Why cosmology, the study of the universe, the scientific study of the nature of the universe. Why is that important? Why should all human beings be interested in that? And they should. They should. Every single human being on Earth should be interested in cosmology. And it is very important for every human being to know about cosmology. And you might say, well, I don't know about that. Well, read this book. Read this book and then walk away and not think that. I challenge you, because she makes a huge case about why science matters in terms of like theoretical science about the nature of the universe. She talks about the study of dark matter, right? This is one of the things she talks about. And then she talks about why dark matter is so important. Why is it so important? And one of the reasons is because the whole structure of the universe was set by the influence of dark matter, the gravitational force of dark matter. And if there was no dark matter, if this kind of matter that we are unable to see, observe with our eyes, we only can observe it through its influence. If that matter didn't exist, there would be no us, right? We wouldn't exist, because the dark matter's influence is what gave us the physical platform to evolve and develop as human beings. And that's why it's important for us to know that. But she goes really deep into that, right? So if you want to know a lot about science and about the nature of the universe and why it matters, why you should know about the nature of the universe on a scientific level, this book is great. This book will hold you over. You can have a lot of conversations with this book. You'll walk away from this book thoroughly educated and thoroughly entertained. And the best part about this book is that it's written for the layman, right? is written for a person that's not a scientist. You don't have to have a degree in science. You don't have to be have a PhD in cosmology. You don't have to have a degree in cosmology to understand what's being said in here. Unlike a lot of the philosophy books that I read that are like very complicated, a lot of times overly complicated, like unnecessarily complicated. They're trying to tell you something is like, well, maybe you could have did that in a much more easier way for more people to understand. Lisa Randall doesn't have that problem. She's a really good communicator. She's able to communicate complex things in a very easy and understandable fashion, which is an incredible skill. I'm looking at the subtitle right here. The astounding interconnectedness of the universe. Yep, exactly. Exactly. We're all interconnected. You know, that's a philosophical point of view. What about another book, you know, that will hold you over for a year? Well, let me give you a book that's a modern classic. Oh, did I not grab it? Maybe I didn't grab it. I'll be right back. Oh, there it is. And that is The Joy Luck Club by Amy Tan. Man, I haven't read this book in such a long time. This is one of those modern classics, right? The Joy Luck Club. The Joy Luck Club follows an Asian American family and their experience, basically, going through their life experience. It follows generations, and it is a very American experience. And that's one of the important things to consider, right? I think this book would hold you over for a year because of many things. You know, for one, when I read this book, I didn't think that I was going to relate at all to it. I'm like, oh, okay, this is about, you know, I'm African American, black guy. You know, I'm just reading this because, you know, it was in school. And I just read it. But I was blown away. I'm like, okay, this is some very universal themes that apply to everybody. Family, lineage, culture, the relationship between mother and daughter, parent and child, kinship. These are themes that everybody goes through. And I'm reading this book and I'm like, wow. Even though this is an experience that I haven't specifically been through, there's a lot of things that are being discussed in here that I can relate to. So it shows you how much the same we really are. We have a lot of differences with each other. You know, every individual is different, but as the saying goes, there are more things that are the same about us than there are different. That's one thing. And then the other thing is that's really cool about this book is that, you know, what is the American experience? You know, what does it mean to be an American and live the American life? That's not one thing. You know, that is not one thing. The American experience, what is that? There is no one American experience because we're a very diverse nature with a lot of cultures and a lot of experiences and a lot of classes and a lot of races and a lot of religions. And it's different for each person. And each person who is American, right, you're not just American. You're American and you're something else, whether it's whatever Asian culture you're from or, you know, any type of African or black experience, your Latino, your Latinx experience going on, you know, the multiple ones of those, even the white experience. There's multiple white experiences, absolutely. This is why oftentimes you see that prefix like African American, Japanese American, Chinese American, because being American is not just being, you know, coming from the United States of America. There's also this added culture that comes from all types of different parts of the world as well. Even Native Americans, right? To Native Americans or indigenous Americans, First Nation people, you know, even they have their dual relationship with America. You know, they got their culture of origin and then they got the American culture. And these two things are different, but at the same time they meld together. And it makes this really complicated, complex, multifaceted experience. And that's what it means to be American. You know, it's hard to explain for people who live in other countries. But I'll tell you, this book will explain it to you. You know, you read this book and you'll begin to understand, oh, this is what it means to be American. Right? There's a lot more to it than the USA flag, right? Also, there's a lot of cool San Francisco Bay Area scenes in the book, which that's where I'm from, so that's cool too. So yeah, I would say this is another good book. If you have only one book to read in a year, you can have some very good conversations with that one. The last book I would like to present to you talked about nonfiction, we talked about graphic novels, we talked about regular novels, and I would like to present to you a script right here, a screenplay. A screenplay is for like movies and television, right? And a script is for theater, if I'm not mistaken. This is a theater script, and it's the Laramie Project. You might have heard of this book already. Again, this is a classic, modern classic. This is the story of a very popular hate crime, or infamous hate crime that happened where a gay person was killed because they were gay. And it's an examination of why does that happen? How could that have happened? It's an examination of the meaning behind hatred, right? It's an examination of the meaning behind homophobia. And it was when I read that book, I actually read it in school. We were assigned it, and for me, it's one of those life-changing books, because when I was a little kid, or I guess when did I read it? I was a young teenager. Gay issues, LGBTQ plus issues. That wasn't really a concern of mine. I kind of just brushed it off like, it's not me. I'm just heterosexual, black eyed, and it had nothing to do with me. Then I started reading that book. I'm like, oh, I see. No, this is important. These issues are important. This is a hate crime. This is as much as a hate crime as it is a hate crime against black people, for instance. This is the same thing. Hating somebody because they're different. But more importantly, because of who they are. Hating somebody because of who they are, right? Why? And it starts to examine like our society, and why is our society conducive to that kind of violence, that kind of activity, that kind of hatred? What is it about our society that makes these things happen, right? Because it is a societal issue. It isn't just simply like, oh, that person was bad that did that. The person that committed the hate crime, that killed the gay person, that's a bad person and they should go to jail. It's bigger than that, right? What in our society even allowed that to take place? And it forces you to confront a lot of issues, right, that you might not want to talk about, right, that are very sensitive, and things that you might disagree with but are very important, and you might be confronted with, should I be disagreeing with this? Is this something that I should actually think? Is it really right to think these things? You're confronted with that, with the Laramie Project. Very important book. It'll make you think. It's a short book too. It's a script, right? This is a script. But I would say anybody could read this, and it'll be a wake-up call. You might have heard about it. It is definitely, it's based off of a true story. This isn't fiction. It's adapted from a real event that actually happened. So that's another book where you can derive a lot of important philosophy, a lot of social action. You can get some information and be very educated and have a lot of critical discussions after you read this book and tell people about it. Look, my book's all beat up. It literally is like the book I had in high school, which is like definitely over a decade for sure, like maybe 15. No, actually, about 20 years old. This book is, I'm getting up there. Oh well. There you have it. Like, if you were so busy, you can only read one book in a year. Like, those 5 books, I would say, would hold you over for a year. So I walked up to you, and it was 2000, New Year's Eve, 2019, going on 2020. And I asked you, what books did you read this year? And you told me, well, I only read one. I only had time to read one. That's all I had the time to read. And I'm like, okay, which book? Then you said one of those 5 books. I would tell you, oh, well, that was a good year. That was a good year. And I would probably sit with you and talk to you about either of those books for, several hours. I could do that. Definitely. You will definitely get a lot of value from those books. Now, I'm not saying you should just read one book a year. Read as many books as you can, but don't feel anxious or guilty or jealous or nervous or bad or guilty that you didn't read a certain amount of books. It's about the value. It's about the quality, not the quantity. But that's it. So I would just like to congratulate The person, again, I'll just say the name because it humors me. JJBBJCMH78, congratulations. The books will be being sent to you. I'll message you later. We'll work it out and I'll send it to you. It'll be all good and we'll have a blast. And thanks for watching. You know, I'll get, when I finish reading the Karl Marx Capital Volume 3, that video will go up and we'll have a very interesting and deep philosophical discussion about Marxism, about socialism, about communism, about political philosophy, about economics. Yeah, we're gonna get deep in that book. I'll tell you what, look forward to that. And of course, we'll be reading a lot more books and I'll be having a bit more videos, but I'm gonna bring them out when I finish the books. It's not a race, it's a marathon. Isn't that how the saying goes? It's no rush. You know, as long as we're getting value, it's all good. But you've been watching the Black Ponderer. Tune in next time for more philosophical thought.